Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel. In this channel, we make videos on learning web development, learning web application development, e-commerce development, digital marketing. If you're new to this channel, please feel free to subscribe. You'll find the subscribe button at the bottom of the video that you're watching right now, that red button over there. Please subscribe so that you will always be informed and you'll get notifications every time we set up a new video in this channel. We have new videos on Wednesdays and on Saturdays. Also, like this video and leave me a comment below, and I will try to get to each and every single comment that is made on this video. Another useful feature that we have on our videos is at the bottom inside the description box. If you expand the description of the video, you will see we've got timestamps to interesting sections in the videos that we're making, because we make a lot of long videos, so you don't have to watch the entire video. You can just read through the timestamp and read about the section that you're interested in, and you can just click on that timestamp and it will take you exactly to that section, and you can just watch that section. And it's also useful in future. If you return, you can just go to the timestamp and click on the section that you want to watch again. And also in the description below, guys, we've got links to our social media channels: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Please follow us there as well. We sometimes output information in there, and let's start learning. Welcome back to our lecture series. We are now on lecture 5 of the series, where we're teaching you how to build your own web application from scratch using the Python framework Django. All right, so the focus of this lecture series is not just to teach you the ins and outs of Django, but specifically to teach you how you would approach the entire project execution of building a web application if you were doing it for a client. So we're going to be building a real world application, professional, that you would be able to sell to a client by the time you're done. But it's going to teach you not just the details of programming, but also the high level, specific approaches to how you would handle getting into designing a web application from scratch, the planning that's involved, the kind of things you need to think when you're talking about object-oriented programming and so forth. All right, so we're taking it a little bit higher and giving you the skills that you would be able to go get clients and start building web applications for clients, because you're going to consider everything that's required. We're also talking SEO in this lecture series, so we're covering a whole lot of ground. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've done a whole lot of lectures on project planning. And in the last lecture we started with a project execution, where we actually started to write some Django code. And so we created a Django project, we created a Django application, our first app, we created our first view, we did some routing, we went through static file management, but this week we're going to talk about the models. Okay, so we're going to continue where we left off last week, because the video was a little bit long. So I'm continuing right there where we left off last week, still working on our first application, which is the jobs application. We're going to start working with the Django models. Okay, so the Django models is sort of like the object-oriented way of how we talk to the data and how we structure the data in our database, but also how we display the data in the front end, in the HTML. And I'm going to show you. So let me stop talking and get right to it. Okay, so we're going to be building the model for the job application, which is also the job class that we're going to be working with. All right, so our current website looks like this. Okay, so I've made some modifications since we last spoke last week. All right, just to simplify the code a little bit and remove a lot of the clutter. You'll see I've replaced the logo with our logo that we designed last week, and just some high level things, but I'll make the code available for you. And how you can do the replacing of the logo yourself is just the logo that you've created. You need two types of logo. You need a normal one, and then you need a white one. Okay, and then you just need to sort of move them into the VPS the way we moved all our static files last week. So just look at the video from last week and how we moved our static files to our VPS from our machine. You do the exact same thing with the white logo and the dark logo, and then you're going to be able to display them like that on your HTML. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's get to our models, right? So the model we're going to be creating is going to be the jobs model, which is going to go into our jobs application, right? And if you recall, we're still going to have more applications. We talked about the jobs application, the blogs, maybe applicants, maybe companies. Maybe we'll refine them a little bit. But this is just going to be one application within all the applications we're still going to build in this entire project by the time we're done, right? So we're still going to do the exact same thing for other applications. But back to the jobs application, let's talk about the jobs model and what we need for this, all right? So from the top of my head, I just wrote this down, and imagine if the jobs class or the jobs model was like a sort of a table in a database. What were all the columns that you would need to store the data? What kind of data would you need to store, right? So I would need the title of the job. I would need the company that is posting the job, the location of the job, for example, something like, okay, the job is in Johannesburg, South Africa, all right, the salary, okay, and you have to be very specific because if people are going to be posting jobs, how are they going to post the job, monthly CTC, yearly CTC, whatever, for simplicity, we're just going to say monthly cost to company. You can have both yearly and annual so that clients can choose how they want to display their salary, okay? And then we can have the type, is it a full-time, part-time? Is a job going to be, is it on a mobile, or is it like a, whatever, the type of job that you're advertising, the experience that's required. Maybe we'll have a logo image because if we look at our templates here, you'll see the way they're listing the jobs. There's always like a logo up there. So this could be the logo of the company that's doing. So if this was a job for Sasol, perhaps you would put the Sasol logo. If it was an APSA job, you put the APSA logo so that people can sort of connect the job that you're posting to the company, and it sort of can draw them to the kind of companies they want to work with, okay? So perhaps you want to have that logo, and then you want to have the summary of the job, just a short description that maybe is going to be shown on the front end, the requirements, the date that you've created, the owner or the person that created the job. So this can be a user, okay? So the user that actually created this job, what about that, and all of that. So maybe later on you might want to add more, reduce more, but for now I think this is sufficient. I spent some time, I went through the template, and I sort of worked around that. But if you were building this for a client, this is where you would want to sit and consult with your client. So you would write these classes that you think you're going to need in your database, and you would sit with your client and discuss with them, are this sufficient? What else do you want to display? And another thing that you want to keep in mind when you're creating columns for your database is that clients always like to have the ability to search through their database, okay? So later on, they like to say, yeah, I want you to have a search functionality because I want people to be able to search for jobs in Johannesburg or jobs in whatever, and you must keep in mind, if you didn't create a column in the database, you're going to struggle to build a filtering functionality around a certain variable if it wasn't already a column in the database. I don't know if you know what I mean. So this is why you want to sit with your client at this point and say, these are the tables I want. Also prompt your client at this point, because by now he's not thinking about it, but you as a developer, you need to be thinking about it at this point, and prompt him and ask him, what kind of search variables are you going to want? Okay, so for now, I think for location, I'm going to just leave it like that, and I'm going to make this very, very simplistic. But maybe what you'd want to do is have an entire address, street address, town, province, Wara metropolitan, so that you can have more variables in your tables for people to search with. But that's all right. For now, I'm just going to leave it as one string for location. Okay, so we're gonna take all of this and we're gonna build it into a model. Okay, so let's get started. So let's get back to our VPS. All right, so our VPS is over here. I'm just going to ls so you can see where I am. I always like to start with my coding from the base where the models.py file is. All right, so we're going to cd, which means we're going to move into our jobs application. Okay, so just cd into jobs and ls like that, and you can see everything that's in the jobs. You can do ls minus l. It sort of shows in a better way. You can see where you are right now. So what you want is to go into this file that is called the models.py file. Okay, so this is the file that is going to keep all the models that you're going to be creating within the within the jobs application. All right, so you could have multiple models within the jobs application, but this is where the models are going to sit. In last lecture, we talked about the views.py. We created a view in there, and we had our, we talked about what other file did we look at last week? I must just remind myself. We had the views.py, and then we also, yes, we talked about the templates, and we had all our HTML codes in there, and so forth. So for now, we're going to go into the views.py, and for that, you're just going to say nano views.py. All right, and this is going to open the nano code editor, and then you'll see, no, not views.py, so let's stop that. Nano models.py. Okay, so let me just remove that. All right, so currently you have nothing under models.py. It just says to you, create your model underneath here. So this is where we're going to create our model under the models.py file. Okay, so let's get started. So maybe let's pull this one close by so that we can see all the things that we want. We want the title, the company, and all these things. We want to build them in there. All right. So let's get into it. Okay, so to do that, we start by saying let's just make some space in there. Okay, so we're creating a class, all right, and that class we're going to call it jobs. Okay, I think I like to call it similar to what my app is so that I remind myself of what it is I'm trying to build. Okay, so the class is jobs. Okay, and inside that class we're going to as an argument it takes our models, which is these models, which has already been imported at the top there. So Django already imported that for you. You don't have to re-import it again. Okay, it's models dot model, just like that. Okay, so class jobs models dot model, and then we're gonna start writing our code underneath there. All right, so the first variable that we'll have in there is what we call the title. Right, and the title is going to be models. Okay, and then we have to select the type of data that you're going to be saving in here, and this is very, very important because this works with SQL, and SQL, a lot of the times you have to be very specific about the type of data. Are you saving a string? Are you saving a an integer? Are you saving a boolean? What is it that you're saving in the database? How long is it? Is it a character? Is it a whatever? So and to get a list of all these type of models that go into our database, I'm going to put this also in the description below. All right, so this is the Django documentation page where they discuss the type of model field reference. Okay, so the type of fields that goes into the models, and there's a lot of them. I mean, you'll see over here. I'm not gonna go through all of this now because it's going to take me a very long time, but I'm going to link this and then you can go through this in your own time. All right, but it's things like you have an auto field, you have big integer field, email field, character field, boolean field, decimal field, datetime field, depending on what it is you're trying to save. Okay, there is all sorts of fields so that you can save the data correctly in the database and put it in the right format, and it will be saved in the format that you put it. I mean, we even have image field where we're going to be able to be saving an image, and I'm going to take you through that because some models might require an image, especially this one, it will require an image. If you recall, we talked about being able to save the logo. Okay, so you also have all of that, and I'm going to go through all of that in detail, but I will link this in the description for you and go through this in your own time. I won't go through this in detail right now. Okay, so the title, for example, is going to be a string. Okay, so for a string we need to use what we call the character field. Okay, so it is a char like that. All right, it's a character field, and you can, it takes a couple of arguments, but you can specify, for example, the maximum length is very, very important usually because it will help make sure that people do not enter characters that are like 1,000 characters under your title, and then you have display issues. Okay, so I'm going to specify that and say max length is equals to, I don't know, we'll make it 200, okay? Because it's just the title, okay? So the title of whatever. So I'm gonna off camera type in the rest, and then we'll continue with this tutorial with everything tapped in, so I don't take too much time. I don't waste your time typing all of this on camera. So the first thing that we had done was the character field. If you recall, we just had typed in the title models.character field, and I've changed the maximum length to 150. So this would be like a string, so a character field is similar to like a text input area where you can just input a string, that's the text, and then, you need to just give it like how long it is, how long you want the string, okay? And company, the name of the company is also going to be a character field, a little bit less characters there. The location, similar, is a short string. The salary also is a character field. Okay, now when it comes to the type, what I wanted to do with the type is I didn't want people to just enter randomly their own type of a job that they want to do. I want to give it specific choices. So what I've done here will end up being rendered similar to a select field with options where you'll be able to give it you'll be able to give the user a couple of options to choose from, and then they will have to select from the drop down. Okay, so for the type of job that you're going to enter, I'd like the users to be able to choose between a part-time, full-time, and remote. Okay, I don't want people to just enter any random value that they have in there. Okay, so that's what I've done there. It's still also a character field. It also has choices, and the choices that I'm going to give it are these ones, and then it has a default which is full-time, but I think we need to also enter a maximum length in here. Okay, so you copy maximum length and you enter it in there so that you don't get an error, and I think we're going to do the same for that choices as well. And then maximum length 100, I think it won't get that far, so I'm going to leave maximum length as 10, and I'm going to leave maximum length there as 10 as well. Okay, so these are your options: full-time, part-time, and remote. And full-time is described at the top there as FT, PT, RT, but then what gets displayed is going to be FT. So FT is what you're going to see inside the database, same as a select field where you have the value and what the clients actually see. What the client's actually going to see is full-time from the drop-down menu, but what's going to be sent to the back end to your server is going to be that FT. Okay, so that is then the choices, and then the experience also is in choices. It's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. I thought that's an easy way to represent it: T1, T2, 3, T4. And tier 1 would be less than 2 years, 5 to 10, 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10, whatever. And also the reason why I did this is I didn't want people to also enter random numbers for years. I didn't want somebody to enter experience less than 5 years, somebody enters less than 2 years, somebody enters whatever they want to enter, 2 years, 6 months, somebody enters 3 years, and then it's going to be difficult for me to be able to reconcile the data later on, especially when you're trying to build a filter. So if you want to be able to build a filter, for example, for search, and you want to be able to search for jobs that have experience of less than 2 years, for example, it's going to be easier for you to build that later on if your data is structured in that format. Hence, this is the part of the database that's very important, is to think about how people enter information into your database, because when you pull that information out, it's going to come back in that format, and it's going to be easier for me to just say I want tier 1 choices less than 2 years, and everything that falls in there, I'll be able to get it that way. So that's why we did it that. And then the summary is just a text field. There is a slight difference between a text field and a character field. Okay, a character field is what you would have in HTML as an input of a text field, but then an input of a text. Yeah, a text type of input inside, an input for area, but the text field would be similar to like a text area input inside of a form. So the text area is different from the string input of type text, because type text is just usually like just one long line, whereas the text field will be like a paragraph. You can enter a whole lot. You can enter 2-3 paragraphs. You can enter as much information you want. So in text area is usually longer and has more space for clients to enter information compared to a character field. And then the logo over here is going to be an image field. If you went through the documentation that I just shared from Django, you will see that you can actually enter into a model an actual logo, an actual sort of like image field where people will be able to enter images, and that image, the only thing you need to specify when you enter an image field is the actual upload location. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later on, where we specify to Django where this upload location is going to be, and this folder called upload images, and so that we can be able to find it later on. Okay, so for now, all you need is to remember that we're using an image field, and that we need to specify the upload to location where the files are going to be uploaded to. And if you want to, you can specify a default file, but this is optional. And then the date created is going to be a datetime field, and this datetime field, the default is the time zone now, which means by default, if somebody doesn't enter this, Django is just going to take the current time zone, the current now time, and enter it when the actual data set was created, and that will go with the class. Okay, so we needed the time zone. Okay, you'll see we've got a variable here called time zone, so we had to import it at the top. So from Django utils, import time zone. So just remember to do that, because you're going to need to import the time zone at the top so that you can refer to it here, being able to get the datetime field. Okay, and then the last one that we will be using here is the foreign key. Okay, so a foreign key is actually another class that exists in your application. Okay, and we want to be able to enter a variable in our table that is related to, it's a relational a variable. It's related to the user class. Okay, so every time somebody enters a job into the database, they will have to specify who the owner, or who is the person that created that, and the person that created that will be a user, and we'll have to specify who that user is. And for that, we need to import the user class. And the user class, if you recall, it's the default class that comes with the Django. From when we installed the application, the user class was already there. We didn't create it ourselves. This is the first class that we are creating. The user class exists because this is how we're able to create our first super user. Okay, and when we went to the admin panel, we were able to see the user that we have on the system, and you could create users from the admin panel, or you could create users from the command line. But for you to have been able to create users, the user class already existed. Okay, so this is how you download it, or you import it. You import it from Django contrib auth models. You import the class called user, and then you can refer to it here. And that foreign key allows you to then be able to input the entire class. So later on you will see that you'll be able to to have access to all the variables that are inside that user class. User username, user first name, email, whatever it is that is inside that user, because that user is imported as an object. All right, so you're going to enter it there, and then it's very important to specify what happens, because when you created that relationship, you have to specify what happens now if that user that is related to this jobs class gets deleted. We've selected the cascade, models cascade. What this will do is that if that user gets deleted, this job will also be deleted, which means if I'm a user on this platform and I create 5 different job applications, and later on I decide I'm going to delete my profile, I don't want to be on this anymore, all the job profiles that I've created under my username will be deleted as well. Okay, but if you create deleted job, you will not be deleting the user. Okay, that wouldn't make sense. But if you delete the user, you will create each and every single job that they have. You will delete each and every single job that user created. That's all. Okay, and then the last part of this is obviously the print string function that's required inside of the class. This just allows you to print or view the class in a way that makes sense. Okay, so if somebody called the class or string to the class, you'd be able to then return. You can choose how you want to display it. Otherwise, if you don't have this function, it will just display it as an object, which doesn't make sense. What you want to be able to display is something that you'll be able to recognize what it is you are looking at. Okay, so a title will most likely not be unique, because you might have one, one company might have lots of developer junior developer positions. So if you wanted to display this job and you only displayed the title, it might not be specific enough. So what I thought, and this is optional and you can choose how you want to do it, is that I want to display the title and the company, all right, so that I can say if the company was APSA, I can say the company, I can say APSA is looking for junior developer. That's more specific. So if I was printing this class or this object or an instance, if I was printing an instance of this class, for me to be able to recognize it, I think if I saw the title and the company, it would be good enough for me to know what kind of job we're talking about. I mean, you can go even into the location if you want to be even more specific and say APSA looking for process engineers in Centon, for example. But the way I want to display it is like that, apps are looking for junior developers, all right? And this is what will get displayed when somebody calls the string function to that instance, to any instance of that job class. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to copy this as it is, and we're going to paste it in our file. We need to place it in the models, that file that I was typing earlier, the models.py file inside of the app. Instead of the jobs application, inside of our Django, in the VPS container, and then we're ready to go. So what we were discussing earlier on is there's a couple of things we need to do to our settings.py file to specify the upload location so that we'll be able to upload images properly. So for us to do that, we need to go into settings.py where it is underscore app. Okay, so we need to go nano. Nano, and we need to go into Scolo app directory, settings.py document. All right, then within the settings.py document, there's two variables that we need to specify in here. So let me just look for them in my notes here so that I don't get it wrong, and we can do it right at the bottom of the page. Okay, so we specified the static root there, but we need to specify two variables, the media root and the media URL. Okay, so let me just write that, media root. Okay, similar to the static root. Remember that when we specify the static root, we're specifying the location where the static folders or the static files are going to be kept. For the media root, we're going to be specifying the folder where all our media files are going to be kept. So every time somebody uploads a document into our application, whether it's an image or whether it's a document, whether we're going to be uploading in files, wherever we're doing any uploads, we need to specify where those files must be kept, and then they're going to be saved in the media root of our application. Okay, so I'm going to just copy that. All right, and OS path join base directory, but instead of calling it static files, we're going to call it uploads. All right, so uploads is going to be the media root. So every time we upload a file, it's going to be kept in here. And if you don't have that folder existing, it's going to create it for you. All right, then after that, what we need to do after that is that we need to specify the media URL. All right, and the media URL, that's simple. The media URL is like from the outside looking in. If, for example, I wanted to have like a path directly to that media file, where should that path go? All right, so I'm going to choose uploads as well. Okay, so what this will do is that whatever file I kept in there, so let's say I saved under uploads a file called default.png. all right, if I wanted to refer to that file from the front end, or I wanted to use that file somewhere else, I could go to my URL of my website, which whatever the URL is going to be. It could be www.careerportal.co.za. Then it's going to be /upload/ then the root of the file, wherever it is that is kept. All right, so that's what that upload is for. But I also need to have the slashes, the leading slashes there at the beginning and at the end, like that. All right, so I hope you can see what I'm doing here. All right, I've specified two different things in here. I can't zoom in there, but it's the media root and the media URL. Okay, the media root, you just have to specify a name of the folder where your file is going to be kept. If you don't have this folder, it will create the folder for you. And the media URL as well is from the outside of the application. I mean, if you had to refer to this from your front end or even from your template, you would use the uploads a path to get to your media files that have been uploaded using the application. So after that, I'm going to close this. That is Control X, and then do you want to save? I'll say yes, and then it's going to save it under settings.py, and that's done. And then there's one more thing I need to do as well. Before I can finish this, I need to register this in my admin file, because I want to be able to actually, before I build the front end for saving my data, I want to be able to like enter it from the admin panel. Okay, and I'm going to show you how that's done. But before I can do that, I need to do some modifications to the admin file. Okay, and for that, let me just look at this. Let me just cd to jobs so that you can see it clearly. All right. So underneath jobs, we worked on this file models.py. There's another file in here called admin.py. Okay, so that's the file that we need to be working from. Okay, so inside the admin.py file, I'm just going to say nano admin.py. All right, and then I'm going to open it, and you'll see currently there's nothing in there. All right, so in here, from inside admin.py, I need to specify the class, the new model that I've just built, so that model will be, the admin, front end will be able to find this model, and I can be able to edit and work with this model also from the admin panel of my application. Okay, so in order to do that, I need to import the model itself. Okay, so I'm going to say from models. Okay, and it's going to import from the models.py file that is existing in the current directory. Okay, from models, I need to import, what did I call my model? I think I called it jobs, right? So from models, import jobs. What it's going to do is going to go and look for the files, the models.py file, which is in the exact same directory that we're in right now. And then from there, it's going to import the class called jobs. Okay, and after I've imported that, actually this should be at the top, all the imports together. So let me just delete that. All right, perfect. And then after I've done that, there's just one line of code that's needed here. Okay, and it's admin. Okay, and this admin is that admin that's already been imported at the top there for you. Okay, so you need to say admin.site, the admin site.register. I'm gonna just make sure I get the spelling right and I don't misspell this. Admin.site.register. We need to register this new jobs. The new jobs model that we've just created. Okay, so admin, that admin there, .site.register. Okay, that's double R, must be just one R. Admin.site.register, register the model called jobs, which we've imported from the models file. All right, so I'm going to Control X and I'm going to save this. And then after this, we can run our migrations. And then what running migrations does is it actually like goes back to our database and it recreates that new table for us using the format that we've created in our models file. It creates a database for us, and then we can now start working with it and start entering data into our database. Okay, so this is very simple. Every time you make a change in your models file, whether it's your model in this application or any other application that you've created under Django, you need to run your migrations. Okay, so let's go through the motions of doing that. Okay, running migrations is quite simple. You just I'm looking for the code for that. All right, you can't do it from here, so let's go back to the root of our application. Let me see that. Okay, where the manage.py file is. Okay, this is where you need to run this code from, and then you just need to type in Python manage.py and make migrations. Okay, now we've got another error. We need to install Pillow. Okay, that's going to be very easy to fix. Pip install install Pillow, like that. Finally, okay, so make migrations went well without issues this time. So once it's done that, it created a model called jobs for you. Once you've run make migrations, then you need to actually do the migration itself. You need to migrate. So you're going to do Python manage.py, migrate. All right. And everything went well because migrations went well, so migrate will also go well. Okay, that's fine. So then let's have a look at our database. We're gonna be able to view it from our admin panel because currently we haven't built a front end or anything to be able to look at what we have in our backend, but we can always view it from the admin panel. Okay, log into our admin panel and just close that. And once we've logged in, we'll see jobs is now a new table inside our application. I don't know if we can zoom in this. Yes, we can. All right. So from the back end, you can see all your users and you can see all the apps that you build. But before you can do this, you have to do the modification to your admin.py file, the one that we did where we imported the class so that the admin panel can see the class and you can work on it. So I'm just going to click on that and you'll be able to see there's currently nothing here. All right, so I want to add a new job here. All right, so I'm going to add a new job and I'm going to call it and I've just downloaded or uploaded a logo in there for this. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Save and add another. All right, so that was saved properly, and then let's look at for another one. Let's look for I don't know. Save and continue editing. All right. So I've added two jobs and now we have some data in our database. So what we're going to do next is that we're going to go to our template and we're going to continue with the templating and find a way to display this data that we have just entered on the front end of our application. So if this is our application here, we want to be able to display on the front end, on the home page, the jobs that we just added to the database and wire the front end of it. Okay. Okay, so we have just created our model for jobs. We have migrated the model to the database so that the Django created for us a table in the database and created for us all the variables and all the columns that go into the table based on the model that we built inside our code. After we did that, we then went to the admin panel. We logged into the admin panel and we made sure that we connected the model that we created with the admin panel in the admin.py file. After we did all of that, then we went to the admin panel and were able to enter dummy data that we now have in our database. So we need to now, the next step is to wire our front end HTML page to be able to display that data. So if you recall, this is what our currently our front end looks like. Everything is hard coded into the HTML itself, and this is the data that it's displaying. And this data is written into the HTML as text. And what we want is, instead of displaying this HTML hard-coded data, what we want to display is data that is in our database. So we want to be able to enter jobs into our database and display jobs from our database in the front end. Okay, we're building this application slowly but slowly. All right, so first of all, the first thing that we need to do is to delete this hard-coded stuff and then display what is in our database. So the first step is to go into our HTML and just get rid of all of this. All right, you'll see find your jobs, post a job that'll tell you about a project, whatever. Post a job, tell us about your project. We quickly match the right freelancers. I actually want to change this. I don't want to say that. I want to say search the #1 leading online job and career searching platform in South Africa. Okay, find your next job today on careers portal. Right, that's what I want to say. And then once you've done that, you'll see there is like sort of like different tabs over there where they show recent jobs, featured jobs, part-time jobs, full-time jobs, and all of that. So what we're going to do is that we're going to look for that day. So these are the tabs over there. Okay, recent jobs, featured jobs, part-time, full-time jobs. And then the tabs, they link to the data at the bottom here. Okay, so under the first one is tab content. This tab content is for recent jobs, is it? So that goes with the recent job tab. That's a recent job, yes. This is what goes in there. You'll see in there that you have web developer, web technology Pty Ltd. So that's web developer. That's the title of the job. This is the company of the job. And then underneath there you have Oak Ridge Lane Richardson. Oak Lane Richardson, that's the location over there. And then at the bottom you have, this is the salary that they're offering, which is that over there. It's a full-time job, and they have it listed in there as a full-time job. And they've got the experience, so that's the experience, 1 to 2 years. And then after that, you've got, some sort of notes in there. I don't know, it makes no sense, but I don't know, we'll just leave it for that. And then you've got the apply now button. Okay, so what we're going to do is that I've deleted everything else, so I've only left already, this is the next tab panel, and the next tab panel also has one, so I've just kept like one under every tab. So this is the next tab panel as well for part-time jobs, and I've only left one job. So I've deleted everything else and just left one job per panel. Okay, and instead of hard coding this jobs, I'm going to write it in Ginger format. Okay, so I'm going to say the first thing that we need to do is assume that we're gonna get from the front end a list, and then that list we're gonna call a list of jobs. Okay, so I'm going to write in my server that I'm going to send to the front end a list, and it's going to be a list of jobs. Okay, so within that list of jobs, it's going to be like a think about it this way. Okay, so this is a Python file. Let me just find some space at the bottom here where I can type something. All right, so imagine we've got a list that is called jobs. Okay, and within this list called jobs, it's an array. Okay, so it's got open and close braces like that. And then within this list, we've got different jobs, okay? And they are inside dict objects or dictionary objects in Python. So let's say you've got job number 1 and you've got job number 2, all right? So you've got 2 jobs inside this list, okay? And inside these jobs, you've got objects, and these objects are the classes that we've just created with the title, the company, the location, the salary, the type, the experience, the summary, whatever, okay? So within the first object, dictionary object, will have title, and then title will be whatever the title is. I think we called it Python developer, whatever it is. All right, and then after that we'll have all the other variables. We'll have company, and all the other variables, and then the same will apply over here as well. All right, you'll have also title. Maybe this will be something else. Will be front end. Okay, company will be something else. Okay, so you'll have a jobs list. That is what we're going to send from the front end, and within that jobs list, you'll have different jobs within the list. And then, so how can we access this from the front end, Django template? We would have to iterate through this list. Okay, so we would have to say, if it was Python code, we would have to say for, you would say for job in jobs. Okay, like that. What for job in jobs does is that it iterates through the list called jobs, and then finds each and every single element in that list. And then you can say, you can talk to the job. You can say job dot title, and then you can say print this, for example. Okay. Okay, this will iterate through the list of jobs, and then it will print the title of the job. Okay, this is how you'd write it in Python. So we have to find a way to rewrite this in HTML. Okay, so this works similarly to Flask. If you've done templating in Flask, we're gonna go through the same principle. Okay, so what we want is that we want this whole section from the top there to the bottom there, from here to here, where this is the whole section that displays just this little block over here. This code for this little block over there is displayed from the top of that div to the bottom there. We want this to be replicated as many times as there are jobs in the list of jobs that we're going to be sending, and we want to display the individual attributes of the jobs in the available space from the back end that's going to be sent to us in the front end. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So we need to be iterating through this list, okay? Similarly to how we do it in Flask, we need to be iterating through this list and displaying a specific job, okay? So let me rather write the code and I'll show you. And the way we write it is like, the Ginger templating format. We just sort of, it's double braces with % signs inside. This means it's expecting a Python code in there, okay? And we're gonna say for job in jobs, all right? And then I need to just make sure that in the back end, in my server, the variable that I send through to the front end, I call jobs, okay? So that it will be able to find that variable, okay? So I'll remember that, and I'm noting that for myself, that I need to call it jobs, all right? And then every time you have a for loop, you have to end it at the end with the end for, and I always like to type it right at the beginning so I don't forget to do that. End for. Okay, so now this whole section of code is going to be replicated as many times as there are elements inside the jobs list. If there's 2 jobs, it will be replicated twice. If there's 100 jobs, it will be replicated 100 times. Okay, now for job in jobs, I want to display, first of all, this web developer is going to be the title. Okay, so I need to display in here job dot title. Okay, I'm not saying jobs anymore because I've already iterated through jobs, and then the element that's going to be sent into the individual iteration is the job itself. Okay, so now in here I need to display the job.title, so the job.title will be displayed over there. All right, and then similarly this will be the job.company. All right. And then over here, it will be the location, I think. The Oak Ridge is the location. Okay, that's the job.location. And over here, this whole section over there without the span, let me see. The span starts there and it ends there. It's for that $sign. So I'm going to just remove the entire span actually. And just, just display once in there. Job.salary, because it's just going to come through as a string. And then over here, this full time is going to be job.type. All right. And then the experience over there, underneath next that is going to be job.experience. I think I also called it experience. All right, and then over here, I'm just going to leave this as it is for now. We're going to change it later. I just want to finish this lecture by showing you and then apply now. I'm going to leave that as well. And then the next thing that we need to display, I think there's the image as well over there. We need to display that. Let me just find that for static. For static folder, it's currently displaying it off the static folder. App images, featured job, image1.png. So we want to change that. All right, and it's going to be job dot, I think we called our image, we called it logo when we uploaded it. All right, so it's going to be job.logo, but not just job.logo. I think we need to then append at the end URL. Okay, so we're going to test and see if this works, but before we can even do that, we need to then build the front end with the data that we need to build the front end to collect the data from the database and create that list for us that we're going to send to the back end. Okay, so before we can even, I'm just going to save this, but before I can copy it, let me go back over here, and we need to go to nano jobs and views .py. We need to go to the views.py file because that's the file that is serving the template, okay? And then we need to, in here, we need to make sure that when we serve this template, you will remember last week we did this templating, and we have that, we return that, we return the render function, and that render function takes in the request, it takes in the HTML that it needs to serve, but at the back end here, I had nothing there. I had it as an empty, object, okay? So what we need to do here, instead of returning an empty object, we need to return the data. We need to actually return the posts from the database. So we need to go into our database and dig, and not the posts, but we need to return the jobs from the database. We need to go and find the jobs and display them here, okay? So the way we're going to do that, actually, it takes a very little line of coding. I'm going to just delete that so I don't get confused. The first thing is that we need to import the jobs class at the top there. Okay, so we're going to import it from the models class. So we'll do it the same as what we did before from .models. We had an error the last time when we did include the dot. Okay, so from models import jobs. Okay, from model import jobs. All right, let's go up there. All right, and then give it some space. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a bit of a tricky situation typing it in here. So what we need to do is that we need to create that variable called jobs. Okay, so that variable called jobs is job list. Let me just call it something else for now. Okay, job list is equals to so we need to get that post that we've not post jobs. We need to get that jobs that we uploading from the top there. Okay, so we need to get that jobs dot objects dot all. Okay, just like that. Jobs dot object dot all. Okay, and then we're gonna get that in there, and then after that we're going to then find a way to then send it to the back end over there. So inside this curly braces, we're going to say open close curly braces. We're gonna call this jobs. All right, and jobs is equals to job list. All right, so let me just relook at my code again, make sure I've typed it properly. Okay, so I've collected the job list, and I've first of all imported from the models file the jobs class or the jobs model, and then from the jobs model I'm gonna call objects all. Okay, and then it's gonna get me everything that's inside that jobs database, and then I'm going to like push it to the front end inside this open curly braces, which is the data that we push into the front end. And I remember I called it jobs. Every time I was saying job dot title, job dot company, job dot whatever. So I need to call it jobs as well, or else the front end won't work properly. And then job is equals to job job list, right? So let's close that and save it. Yes, and then we need to just redo our HTML. And in order to do that, we need to I'm going to remove the current one. So inside the jobs file, templates, home.html, I think that's the one. Let's remove that. And then nano, the same thing. Okay, so it's an empty file so that I can just be able to, load the whole thing with everything that I've retyped in here. All right, and paste it in there. Okay, and let's just go up and have a look at the code that we're going to be observing. I mean, the code that we've just rewritten now. Yeah, for job in jobs, there it is. Okay, it will be under the first tab, which is the the recent jobs, which is the first, which should be the first, recent job tab, should be the first tab of our HTML database. So let's just close that. Yes, save that. All right, and then clear, and then let's run our front end. Our server. I always need to copy that run server command, pattern manager.py run server. And let's hope everything works well. If we restart this, okay, we forgot to load static. That's an easy fix. So every time you're referring to the static folder, you need to load static. So let's stop this. All right. Okay, right at the top of the file, we need to load it in there. All right, let's find our command in there. Run server. And restart the page. There we go. Let's have a look at the bottom there. There we go. Okay. So the image is not showing, so we're gonna fix that later. But at least we can see now the junior Python developer, the front end developer, Santon, Cape Town. This is all the data that we entered in our database. So what have we done in this lecture here today? I'm going to end this here because the lecture is becoming a little bit too long, and we'll continue later on. We're going to actually build a whole new page where we are displaying all the jobs, and we're going to find a way to structure the data, to be able to filter recent jobs, featured jobs, part-time jobs, full-time jobs, and whatever, so that we can show different jobs under different tabs. But at least the hard part is done. We have in this lecture created our models for the jobs, all right, and we have entered dummy data for the models for the job, and we've done all the back-end Django stuff that we need to do. And then finally we rewrote the HTML so that instead of displaying, for example, under featured jobs, it's still displaying this hard-coded stuff. Instead of displaying that, we've rewritten it to display data directly from our database by calling the jobs a model, and from the front end, from the the server, the views, the HTML file, we got that data from the database, and then we passed it onto the front end to the HTML via the render function, and then we call it from the front end, and then we're going to display it like a list. And like I said, if we have 2 items on the list, it will display 2. If we have more than 2, it will display as many as we have, or as many as we limit. And so in the next lecture, we'll also be discussing pagination, and then we'll do a whole lot of stuff. But for now, I think this is sufficient for today. Just go through what we did today, and and we'll see you again next week.